Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together we are, which side? This side over here. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. And we just came off three, pretty positive post-game shows. Jets were riding a three-game winning streak. One of those against the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that's been on fire lately. They pull off a victory over the Coyotes. They get a victory heading into the Christmas break over the St. Louis Blues. We didn't know that would be the last game, but there it is. So two wins over pretty significant teams, but tonight not so much. And I can see by our by our chat room there is a lot of people who are ready to fold the tent on the Winnipeg Jets here. I mean, take a look at this one. Freaky Fresh says he's ready to resign. Jets Dubois says, yeah, I think we got to give up this year. It's not the right year. Maybe in 2024, 2025. Look at this. It makes sense why Paul Maurice resigned. A lot of people not happy, not high, and I guess that's what a 7-1 drubbing is going to do to you. I would caution it's just one game. The Jets now have a long kind of break in the schedule in which to fix whatever issues they feel they may have had tonight. But there were definitely some issues tonight, and there's no one better to talk about that than my main man, Ken Wiebe. So before I bring him in, I'm going to make one last push here. Everybody out there, the Kenny and Renny merch. While I don't have him in the show and he can't defend himself, get out there and get yourself a Sean's Headband shirt. Don't worry about those wake up shirts. Get a Sean's Headband shirt. No, I'm kidding. Get one of these two shirts. It would mean a ton of us. We're trying to get a pre-sale going here tonight, coming up in 45 minutes or 44 minutes. It's the last of this pre-sale push that we've been trying to show our Sportsnet colleagues that we are worth the investment and that we can push the merchandise in this area here in Winnipeg. So if you're thinking of buying a Kenny and Renny shirt, either a wake up shirt or preferably a Sean's Headband shirt, head over to the Sportsnet store. We'll put that link up into the chat room here at some point so you can go there. But go check it out. And now let's not hold it back anymore. This is the best entry music in the business for, you know what? One of the best analysts in the business right here. Here comes Kenny Wiebe. Ken Wiebe, my friend, welcome to the show. It is great to see you, and what a day we've had. I'm going to say this, self-promotion, let's just put that aside. We've been doing our long-form shows for, it's getting close to a year now. We absolutely love those. They don't have the numbers that these shows have, but you and I are both of the belief they should. And if you want to break yourself in on seeing one of those shows, go check out the show we did today with Kevin Bieksa. It was absolutely phenomenal. An hour with him where he hung around, spun some good yarns, some really interesting ones. The one about him almost becoming a Winnipeg Jet. He told for the first time on our show, felt he was okay to say it now that Paul Maurice has moved on, but some great stuff. And you even saw an absolutely massive Renny mess up on it. Turd Ferguson says we could have used Kevin Bieksa tonight. Remember how good he was in the playoffs, Renny. Thanks for that, Turd. I knew I was going to face that kind of heat. And you know what? I've said it before. The chat room is there to hold us accountable. I love that they do. I had a little bit of an oops. And and the chat room let me feel it, but good stuff. I appreciate that they did. If you want to go check it out, please go check out that show. It was phenomenal. But Ken, how are you doing tonight, and what did you think of the show earlier today?
Yeah, fantastic show. Kevin was an outstanding guest, as we knew he would be. We've been trying to make it work for quite some time, and we're glad and really thankful and grateful that he spent an hour with us, and we enjoyed ourselves. The laughs were flowing quite freely, and the folks that have been some great feedback from folks that were already able to check out the show, and hope that if you haven't done so already, there's a week between games, so I'm sure there's lots of time for you guys and gals to check it out. It was really a lot of fun, highly entertaining, and Yeah, I mean, one of the most enjoyable. I mean, we've enjoyed every show that we've done so far, but that's one of the most enjoyable shows we've had. And yeah, that story that he told about almost ending up in Winnipeg was fantastic. I knew there had been some whispers, but I did not know the detail that he went into in terms of how close maybe he was to becoming a Winnipeg Jet. So that was one of the great stories that he told. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and yeah, we just love having those conversations so much. And yeah, this was another fantastic one for sure.
Just Ken, don't think I'm gonna forget you setting me up like that. That
Oh
was some
yeah,
good. That was
yeah.
some good stuff. Set me up behind the scenes there,
Oh
everybody. But
man, oh
anyways,
man.
it was good stuff. Hey, so I'm looking up and down. I'm looking up and down in this chat room here, and I'm looking up and down in the chat room, and there's a lot of people who are saying this is just basically the Jets not being able to stand up to the level of a team like this. But you know what? We talked about this, and I'd said a couple of games ago, put the measuring stick away. I don't think it's a good idea right now. I think that the Jets are too, fresh off of a little bit of a tough time. It's not always a straight line. Hey, if you play the stock market, you make a lot of money on stocks that do this and then do that and up and down and up and down. This may be just one of those down points. I don't know that I'm ready to entirely sell the farm here, but I do have a lot of belief in the Colorado Avalanche. I've said since the beginning of the year on this show, I think they're the team that's going to represent the West in the Stanley Cup final, along with the Florida Panthers on the other side. I think both my picks are looking pretty darn good right now.
Yeah, I
But
would
Ken,
say.
but before we go too far and break out what happened here tonight, are you ready to proclaim that the Jets as a team aren't able to achieve the level of what we saw from the Colorado Avalanche tonight?
I would say they had no answer for the best line in hockey. I'm willing to say that, but I would say the first period was very even. And in fact, I think the Jets had opportunities to extend the lead to 2-0. And I would also say, I mean, we just talked about it with Dave Lowry. I think the Jets missed an absolutely glorious opportunity to get that to be a 2-1 game. They had a 3-on-1 rush with Mark Scheifele,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Kopp, and Nikolai Ehlers. And
Good
it's an
point.
outstanding save by Darcy Kemper. I mean, it's a perfect saucer pass. I mean, was it a little bit low? Could he have got it there a split second sooner? I mean, that's easy to say in slow motion, but that's a great play on all fronts. That goal goes in. Maybe the Jets are feeling confident. I mean, they had a great first. If they score early in the second, who knows? But after that, it was clear they did not have an answer. The Jets did have a push, thanks to the score effects. I think they obviously got blown out. They were the second best team on the ice. This is one of the classics where it would be hard to believe, I'm guessing, if I had told you, Sean, that the high danger chances for in the game at 5-on-5 were 9-9. I would bet you'd be surprised. And if
I
I
would
told
I
you,
would be surprised. Yep.
right, and in all situations, the high danger chances were 14 for the Jets and 13 for the Avalanche, which is not reflective of how the game was played, but it is a reminder that the Jets did have some quality chances. I would say this. I would say that Darcy Kemper made some nice saves, but I would also say there were times in that game where I thought Darcy Kemper was a bit shaky. He was
Mm-hmm.
having trouble catching pucks. There were 2 or 3 times where pucks got behind him, and the Jets were a split, a foot or two away from banging in the puck. They had either, it was either Andrew Kopp couldn't get to it, or there was one on the other side. But I mean, what happened was that the best line in hockey cranked their game up. I mean, Nathan McKinnon had a 5 point night. Like, you're not going to see a lot of 5 point nights in the NHL this
Yeah.
year. Nathan McKinnon found another gear, and then the two big bodies on that line, Mikko Rantanen and Gabe Landeskog, absolutely owned the area around the blue paint, which is something that you were trying to get into with Dave Lowry, and
Right.
that was not really a road that he wanted to go down. I mean, he did admit that they needed to be better there, but I just think that the Jets had trouble on their finish. And again, the game kind of changed on that power play. I mean, in real time, Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to finish that hit every single time on Nazem Kadri. He anticipated the puck going to him. It hit
Right.
somebody on the way there. It's obviously interference because he got there before the puck did. But you finish that check angle every single time. And it's not like Nazem Kadri got under the skin of the Jets. If you're on the ice with Nazem Kadri and you have a chance to take a shot at him, you're going to take it. So I know that there's a bit of a turning point in the game, but I don't think that's a bad penalty to take. I mean, Anything in slow motion looks like it took a long time, but that play happens in real time. You need to finish that check every single time. But the difference was Colorado buried their power play opportunities, and the Jets simply didn't convert theirs. They had some nice chances, but I didn't think a lot of time I thought their puck movement was a bit slow. There were some opportunities at times, but the faster team in the game was clearly the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, that I'm not saying that that's not happening. That was very evident. What I am saying is that the Jets had some opportunities to be in that game, and then they did not convert, and then Colorado took over, and then, they took it to the Jets. There's no doubt about that.
There's two things for me, Ken, in this game. The first being clearly, I thought, and I asked that of Dave Lowry, you touched on it. I thought that the Colorado Avalanche, especially their top line, played the exact kind of game that Dave Lowry and before him, Paul Maurice, was trying to convince this Winnipeg Jets team to play. The idea being that skilled players can still go and get goals in front of the net and score the right way, and then fill it in with the seam passes and the really pretty goals and, the little bit of the deeks and dipsy doodles, right? And we saw that tonight. We saw Nathan MacKinnon on a number of occasions try to do the rush and split the D and make his way in and score goals like that. And we've seen him do that before. But we also saw him on numerous occasions just doing the right play and getting the puck to the front of the net and letting those big bodies of Mikko Rantanen and Gabe Landeskog take over. And it's like you'd said, best line in hockey. I think you're probably right when it comes to that. I mean, those are three uber
most explosive.
Players.
Let's say most explosive. I mean,
I'm not even gonna split it up. I'll give it to you. I still think that they're the best line in hockey. If you take those guys and put the three of them together, you're talking about Nathan MacKinnon, who's arguably, I think, is usually in the conversation as one of the top three players in the league, definitely top five. And then you put beside him a guy like Rantanen, who's proven to be one of the better scorers in the league over the last couple of years, and Landeskog, who's just a totally complete player. You put those three guys together, it's hard to beat that. But those guys didn't go and score tonight by, dipsy doodling and finding seam passes. They just went hard to the net and got the puck there as much as they could and scored goals in tight, 2 feet out, just jamming away at the puck. That's how they scored. And I take a look, and I think Dave Lowry, if he said this in the past, their goal is to build tape of the Winnipeg Jets doing the right thing so they can show the Winnipeg Jets going and doing the right things. And that's the video that they can play in the video room. But geez, if they want to borrow something from another team, they can use the tape from the Colorado Avalanche tonight and say, this is what happens when even your most skilled players who've proven in the past they can score from afar are still trying to get the puck in tight in front of the net because they know that's the place they're going to score best. So I think that was one of the other things. The other part about this is I don't think the Jets were prepared for Colorado to take this game over. And this is why. The Winnipeg Jets, I think, play streaky. And you'll even see it. In the third period, there was a stretch of that game where the Winnipeg Jets were kind of taking the game over. There was a wide shot margin. The Jets closed it really fast. When the Jets turn it on, and this, I think, is the thing that always gives Jets fans hope about the Jets and sometimes drives fans crazy about the Jets, is when they do that, they can hang with anyone in the league, and they sometimes can take really good teams and make them look a step below the Jets. But it's very rare for this Jets team to do that for 60 minutes in a game. And so that's why you get these games where the Winnipeg Jets are down in the game 3-1 and they'll make a streaky stretch and they'll tie it up and they'll win the game, and we've seen that in the past. That's in this team's DNA. It's what they like to do. And I know there's no such thing as a 60-minute game, but if you're the Colorado Avalanche and putting up 7 goals in a game like they did tonight and have done a number of times this year, Ken, you don't put up 7 goals in the NHL without getting as close to a 60-minute full complete effort as you possibly can. And I thought tonight what happened was the Jets came out and they were even in that first period with the Colorado Avalanche, and the Colorado Avalanche kept pushing, and the Jets have built-in breaks that they take in their game. And when they took those breaks, the Colorado Avalanche just kept going. And to me, if you're going to say this is a measuring stick game, again, I think you should park that because they need to focus just on their how to properly execute what Dave Lowry is looking for and how to just put points in the bank. So put the measuring stick away. But That said, if you want to be able to hang with a team like the Colorado Avalanche come playoff time, if you can get into the playoffs, you need to be able to push throughout that entire game. You can't be taking a 5-minute stretch off, because that team will hang 3 goals on you if you do. That's what I thought happened here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it kind of off air. I mean, the big difference here is that the active nature of the Colorado Avalanche defense has completely changed. I mean, they were starting to integrate Sam Girard what the last time these two teams played. But Cale Makar has now become an all-world Norris Trophy winning kind of defenseman. I mean, Devin Taves, what an acquisition. I mean, incredible. Bowen Byram, top 10 pick. I mean, like, their back end has changed completely. Yeah, their back end has completely changed. I mean, I would say the one thing that would concern me, I mean, I was thinking about this during the game. I mean, they look a lot like the San Jose Sharks, Sean, but can Darcy Kemper, A, stay healthy, and B, provide the level of goaltending that is required to get them over the top? I mean, they have all the elements. They have depth, they have a great back end, and they have a goaltender that has played well at times. But, I mean, I thought, again, like I said, I mean, in a 7-1 game, it's hard to say I thought that Kemper was shaky, but there were times where he was struggling in my book, and he's going to have to get it done in the playoffs, which was something that Philip Grubauer, most people thought that Grubauer could get the job done, and he was not able to do so when it counted. But I think that their back end has changed a lot, and that's made this team tougher to play against. And I would counter that I don't think the Jets, I don't think it wasn't necessarily that they let up. I think that Colorado cranked it up, and then they found another level. But again,
yeah.
I'm not saying that they didn't have they definitely had a letdown, but it's super interesting. I mean, the Jets did not measure up. I mean, that's the simple answer. There's no doubt about that. But I think that you have to respect the opponent. I mean, people here going crazy. I mean, yes, is it true that Vegas Golden Knights were missing 3 excellent players? Yes, but that hasn't prevented them from getting to the top of the Pacific Division. They played lots of games without Mark Stone, and they haven't had Eichel at all. So Pacioretty has been banged up. I mean, they've had lots of guys in COVID protocols. They've had lots of guys hurt. And all those things, but I'm not discounting the Jets' win against Vegas. Vegas is a great team. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. And in terms of the power play, I mean, they needed to convert when the game was still tight, but they still scored. I mean, they've scored 5 games in a row. So, but I do think I have one. Sorry, now that I brought up the power play, I have to say, Sean, I mean, the top unit is staying out way too long. Like, this is getting back to like a year or two ago, where I understand there's times when you have extended zone time where you're not going to go off, but you can't be going on for 1 minute and 45 seconds. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers isn't even getting a chance to go on the ice. So that, to me, I think that's a bogey by the Jets. They have to do a better job of splitting that ice time up a little bit better. And they were at their best when both units were contributing. And I honestly think there were some times during the game, even in the limited time they had, that the second unit had some nice movement and had some good chances. But to me, that it's something that they need to do a little better job on, and that comes from the players that are on that unit. I get it. I mean, we've all been around hockey, and those guys want to be on the ice, but you need to be splitting that ice time up a little bit better for sure.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Ken, because I got to say, I think that's the kind of thing that in the past is, we talked this after the last game about Dave Lowry doing a good job of kind of getting everybody involved and feeling like they were involved, and everyone pulling on the rope and making the younger players and the third and fourth line players feel valuable. I think that hogging the ice time on the power play the way we saw that, which has been a problem in the past for the Winnipeg Jets top power play unit that won't come off, and for a number of years would come off and leave the secondary power play like 25 to 15 seconds, and they'd come out and they'd score anyway. And it was so obvious that this other line should be getting the opportunities, and it just wasn't happening. But I think that that's the kind of stuff that has the capability of kind of splitting the room up a little bit. And I think we've seen from this Jets team over the years, they're never a room that fractures entirely, but I do think they can get a little discombobulated, and I think that's one of the things that can do it. Is if you're Nikolai Ehlers, how do you not get frustrated when you're sitting and you're on the bench and you're waiting for your opportunity, and the top line is going out there, and there's an opportunity for them to get off the ice. And I've been watching other teams. I think it was Vegas I was watching when they were, and I mean, they don't have all their players in, so maybe it just has to do with the fact that everyone's kind of a B grade power play guy on that team, so no one is trying to take the spotlight. But they'll get on there for 25 seconds, and all of a sudden the puck will go down the ice, and they'll change up, right? They'll try and stay fresh and send out fresh guys and try and catch the other guys tired. You would never imagine the Winnipeg Jets top power play doing that, kind of handing the reins over like that. So I agree with you. I think that that's dangerous when you get into the stage where the Winnipeg Jets top power play unit starts taking $1.30 of the 2-minute power play, not once, not twice, but thrice in an evening. It's a good Simpsons reference for anyone out there who follows that show. But I do think that has the capability of kind of upsetting people in the dressing room. Although I don't think it's something that gets said out loud very often. Nick Ehlers, we know, is the kind of guy who would never say anything about it. But I think it's a problem. I think they got to take care of that kind of stuff. And I think it's almost a sign of respect to your other power play unit that you're going to say, you know what, we didn't get it done in a specific time allotted. Why don't you give it a try, rather than saying, we're just going to stay out here and keep trying this over and over and over again. I think I do think that it's an issue. Since we're talking special teams. Okay, you do that. Yeah.
Just finish one quick thing. I mean, talking about Nikolai Ehlers, I mean, last year he was one of the biggest weapons the Jets had on the power play. He has 0 goals and 3 assists on the power play this year. Now, part of that is his ice time is down considerably, at least lately, in terms of the power play time. But it's been something that we talked about earlier in the year. The shots were coming from the outside, but now they're having trouble even generating for Ehlers on that reloading situation. And that's something they got to get going and try to find a way to find the backdoor plays and things of that nature. But I do agree. I mean, I'm not asking people to change after 30 seconds, but I mean, it's got to be closer to a minute 15. If you're going out an hour, minute 30, I mean, that's just a little bit too much, unless you're banging away grade A chances that whole time. So, I agree with you. I think the Jets need to do a better job on that front for sure.
Well, let's get to the penalty kill, because it had been looking better as of late. And then tonight, I think, what was it, 3 for 4? The Colorado Avalanche went. The first penalty kill of the Jets in the first period was surgical. It was phenomenal. They were just denying entry after entry after entry, just stacking that line. When they did get into the zone, they didn't give them time to set up. They were pouncing all over them. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to give you my take on what I thought happened. The Jets, who, again, and I've talked about this in the past, in certain situations like to play a really aggressive kind of all or nothing style. There was a point at which in that first power play, I don't know who it was, but a Jets player was pressuring the defenseman. Another Jets player went and covered off the Colorado player on the wall, and Logan Stanley jumped up from the net to close off a passing lane. 3 guys were right up near the top corner, and it worked. They turned the puck over, and it's in a way, it's an effort to try and create opportunities going down to the other side of the ice and just not giving any space to move the puck. The problem with that is if you ever do get it through, it can be an issue. What the Jets are trying to do is they're trying to stop those side-to-side passes and the one-timers going past Connor Hellebuyck. So in true Jared Bednar fashion, and you and I have talked on this show before about Jared Bednar, both of us, I think, are pretty good fans of his. I think they said on the TSN broadcast tonight, the 4th longest tenured coach in the NHL right now. Jared Bednar, I think, went in there and with his coaches and made some adjustments. And what they started doing, quite simply on the power play, was just pushing the puck to the front of the net. They stopped looking for passes back and forth. They stopped trying to set this up. And I think, if you think of the Washington-style power plays or even the Winnipeg Jets-style power plays, they're all kind of built to try and get that one-timer off the side. And with a guy like Nate McKinnon able to shoot the way he is, or Mikko Rantanen, you would fully expect that from the Colorado Avalanche, except that's not what they did. They decided the Winnipeg Jets were going to try and play aggressive and leave big, wide swaths of the ice open. And if you're sending three guys up close, up to the top of the circle, that means there's going to be open space at the front of the net. They just started pushing it there, jamming the puck in. I thought it was really good coaching, a really good reaction. And I thought that the Jets coaching staff didn't have a response to it, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, the first play, I mean, Rantanen takes a good shot. It's behind him. I mean, Landeskog's second one is a great rebound goal. I mean, it's a really impressive walk by Rantanen at the blue line. He makes a really nice play. So, I mean, there is skill on display. And then the third one is a one-timer from Bowen Byram. I mean, it's late in the game. It's 4-on-3. So, I mean...
that's 3-on-4 is a little bit different, yeah.
Right. So there's more ice open. So there is a one-timer available there. But, I mean... outside of, trying to box out a little bit better, I don't think there was a huge structural issue for the Jets on the power play or in the penalty kill in this game. It's just that Gabe Landeskog is one of the toughest guys to handle in tight. And if there's a rebound available, a lot of the times he's going to win the battle getting to that rebound. So I wouldn't say that this was the Jets were 16 for 17 on the penalty kill going into the game. And I think 8 for 8 since Lowry took over. So I don't think this is some... I don't think that the Avalanche found the Carey Milk secret tonight. I know you're not saying that, but
no.
What I would say is that I think this is a team that had a lot of skilled players going to the hard areas. So they did the job properly, and they were rewarded for it. I mean, like I said, I don't think it was a bunch of tons of breakdowns, but I mean, obviously, when one team scores 3 and the other team scores 1, that's part of it, right? So. I think they needed to do a little bit better job, but you're right. I mean, on the first penalty kill, the way they were able to deny the entries, that was impressive. I mean, the Avalanche are one of the many teams, and I would even say they're probably the team that we've seen that tosses it back even further, right? In terms of that second wave and the the explosion through the neutral zone. The Avalanche, because they have McKinnon, because they have Makar, I mean, they're able to really do a nice job of creating and generating speed through the neutral zone, which helps them on the entries. Jets did a great job on the first one. And then as the game went on, for sure, I mean, the Avalanche chipped away at it and did a really good job on that front. But, I mean, I don't think it was a huge structural breakdown. I think it just was, 3 incredibly skilled players really elevating their game on a night where, they were the best line on the ice and the Jets had no answer for them. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that's really what happened tonight. I mean, even at even strength, those guys were just quite simply a handful.
You brought up a couple of those guys. I'm taking a battering here. I knew this was going to happen, and you know what? I'm okay to take it because
people are paying attention.
It means they came and watched the show earlier on.
And one other quick thing. I mean, for the people who did not miss, who did miss the show earlier. I do share some of the responsibility.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
I do.
He's a good teammate for trying to take this.
You and I were talking about the series going into the show, and you brought up Bieksa, and my brain was partially thinking about something else, or maybe I had a little bit of.
You weren't listening to me.
COVID. No, I had a bit of COVID brain fog. Then
there you go.
The show happens. I toss it to Bieksa about Anaheim, knowing full well that you're going to follow up on it. In the meantime, I've gone to Hockey DB and looked at. All of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, I don't think Kevin was actually traded to Anaheim yet. I go to Hockey DB, I double check, and by the time I get there, you're already starting the question. And now I'm looking at Bieksa, he's looking at me, and we're both like, oh my God. Do you want to tell him or should I? And I'm like, oh man.
It was good. Just to sum it up quick, I was always interested in the Anaheim Ducks' point of view of that 2015 playoff series against the Jets, where the Jets, were almost dominant in each game, led for the vast majority of that series, and then Anaheim found a way to win that series 4 straight. And I'd asked Kevin Bieksa for the perspective, and he said, Ken, do you want to tell him or should I? He was still playing with he didn't join that team till 2016, so a hole in my research. It got through the research team here in the Reynolds household, and I'm taking a battering for it, as I should. It's my job to get those kind of things right. I can't claim the COVID brain, but anyways, you go check out that show. It was a really fun show. It was good stuff. I wanted to say this quickly, because I was tempted earlier on today, because I do think, and I've said this, Paul Stastny, I do think really changes this team. I think he changes kind of the confidence that they play with, the calmness that they play with. So I think he's an important guy to be missing. And Wheeler, as much as he's been out this year, is still tied for the Jets' lead in assists on this. So I mean, clearly he's a guy that they'd be missing. So I was tempted to kind of say, okay, yeah, but what are the Jets going to look like with those guys back, and how are they going to stack up against this team? But if you open that door, then you're opening the door to the Vegas win being not a very good win, because they're missing three of their top players, maybe their three best players, right? So I know we can't really play that game, and you can't play it because you never know. You go into the playoffs, you may have guys injured anyway. So I don't want to go down that road. But I did want to ask you this, Ken, because there's some claims out there, and some people were likening the Colorado Avalanche to the Edmonton Oilers of last year, and basically suggesting they're a one-line team, and that what happened to this last time. We'll get into that, because that's an incorrect statement. This is a deep, like their highest scoring player, Nazem Kadri, is on the second line. Guys like Burakovsky can put the puck in the net. Comfort is phenomenal. I just thought up and down that lineup, they all play the same style of game. We can dig into that later, but I wondered about this, Ken, if you feel like, and I don't, I'm going to couch this by saying I don't, but do you feel like with that kind of nuclear option that Colorado has, is that something that is going to have the Jets thinking that should they run into them in the future, possibly in a playoff series, would you have the Jets' own version of the nuclear option, which is, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and Kyle Connor? Is that a good idea to counteract that?
Yeah, it's interesting. This is where we kind of differ. I mean, I don't think for one second the Avalanche should. I mean, this is not what you asked, but I just want to say I know some people have said in the past that Colorado shouldn't play those three guys together because they don't have any depth behind them. That's just simply not true. And also, if you have one of the best lines in hockey, you should play them together. It's great to say if you can shut them down, you're going to win the game. Well, great, but good luck shutting them down. I mean, go ahead. If you can find me the formula to shut down the speedy Nathan MacKinnon and then the two bulls in the China shop that, just so happen to have great hands, I mean, by all means, but you still have to shut down Kadri and, as you mentioned, Burakovsky. Even Tyson Jost is a fourth-line player. I mean, these are good players.
Yeah.
JT Compher was on the line with Kyle Connor and Tyler Mott, like the best line in college hockey. So, and then too, like I mentioned earlier, with the back end on, the skill on the back end, I mean, you're still going to get a bunch of offense and skill from there that drives the offense. So, hey, it's a fact. Colorado has not had enough secondary scoring in the playoffs. But to me, that's where the comparison ends between Colorado and Edmonton, because Colorado has way more depth and more, and I would even, do they have way more skill? No, but they have players that could counter the nuclear option.
Let's talk about their defense. Let's talk about their defense. Okay, answer that first.
I'll answer your original question first, but I don't think that the Jets would want to go head-to-head with that matchup. I mean, Mark Scheifele's line played the bulk of the. I mean, I shouldn't say the bulk of the night, but they played a lot of shifts against the MacKinnon line. They had some success early. I thought that the Dubois line at times had success against them, but guess what? Not a lot of lines are going to have success against that line. So. It's hard, great. You want to say here, let's wear them down physically. Well, okay, great. But do you have someone who's as big as Gabe Landeskog and that plays that kind of power forward game? Yeah. I mean, Dubois would be similar, but I mean, you don't have three guys like that you're going to blanket them and try to run them out of the rink. At the same time, I mean, the Jets were having success in the first period when they made that line play defense because, Nathan MacKinnon is not a Selke Trophy winner on the back end, or up front. So, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I don't think there would be a temptation to say playing the Scheifele line against them would be a secret to success. I think what I saw was a highly engaged. I would play if you have the last change, I'd like to see Dubois play head-to-head with MacKinnon, similar to how we saw him against Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, because the best chance that you have against MacKinnon is to get in his grill and try to be physical with him, but you also have to have the ability to, play the full 200-foot game. And so to me, I don't think that would be, I would not think that that's one of the ways that
So
you would attack that. So this is what I'm going to just say this right away. T. Konopoli, that's totally fine to say, but almost everyone was saying that last year about Colorado as well. And again, they didn't get out of the second round, right?
I was the
So
guy. I said
they
that. Yeah.
they lost to a great team. I mean, you and I had this exact conversation. I was like, there have been a lot of teams that look great early in the playoffs that don't get to the conference finals. So, but they got beat by a great team. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, we talk
Well, and it
about
was so close too, though, eh? Remember, they
well,
were up 2
yeah,
nothing in that series, and they were
yes,
winning the third game, and then a couple late goals by Vegas got them the win in that game, and then Colorado never
four
recovered.
straight. See ya.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
night.
Yeah. So let's get into, because you've brought it up a couple times, and we should get into it. The Colorado's defense. I mean, you talked about that top line of Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon, how good they are, and or someone brought that up, and then Dave Lowry had said, well, and then you got the defense behind them, and that's the thing about it, right? Is like you have those guys out there, and you think like, where's the hole in that line? It doesn't look like there is a hole in that line, and then all of a sudden you could have Cale Makar playing behind that line, and he may be the best player out on the ice when you do that, And I just thought tonight, and I'd said it to you earlier, as good as the Colorado Avalanche defense look on paper, they look just as good on the ice. Like, paper doesn't always translate to the ice, but I mean, I'll go over it. And like a guy like Nathan McKinnon looks phenomenal tonight. Bowen Byram, like you said, is a guy who's up. I mean, this is only I think he's still a rookie this year, right? So I can't remember. I think he is. If he is, I mean, he's a rookie and he's looking really, really good. That Devon Tays, just he's that guy who's constantly making the right decisions. Sam Girard, he's a water bug out there. I can't believe how fast that guy can move. That guy, when Kyle Connor, who like strikes fear in guys when he forechecks them because he's so fast, he was outspeeding Kyle Connor. And then you got, like Johnson on defense. And I've always said this, I think Johnson is the biggest first overall mistake, or one of the biggest first overall mistakes ever made in the NHL. When you think of the guys who came behind him, like Backstrom, Kessel, Stahl, and of course our main guy here from Winnipeg, Jonathan Toews, all follow him up after he's taken first overall. But I mean, even he looked really impressive tonight. Every single one of those 5 D-men caught my eye tonight. And I look, it's like what each of those guys would be one of the best defensemen on any team they played on. It is embarrassing the depth that they have on defense. What do you see from them, Ken?
Well, and then too, how about this? I mean, your 6th defenseman is Ryan Murray, who was the 2nd overall pick, right? Yeah. So he's the extra guy that's having trouble getting in and out of the lineup when Jack Johnson is out. I mean, your 6th and 7th guys are. I mean, man, oh man. I mean, that's a scary proposition. And again, Eric Johnson, when he's been healthy, big, strong, physical guy, but there too, if he's the 4th or 5th defenseman, that's a pretty deep back end. There's no doubt about that, and that's been an area that the Avalanche have to improve on. We appreciate it, Marshall. Nice job, my man. Thank you for the support. We do appreciate that very much. But no, I mean, the Avalanche defense was exceptional, and they did a nice job in front of the net. Their mobility is outstanding, and we saw what Cale Makar did in overtime the other night against the Chicago Blackhawks. One-man wrecking crew. He left Kirby Dach in the dust, and he still had to make like a forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand shelf job for the win. I mean, it was just
it's going to be hard to beat that for goal of the year candidate, eh?
Right. It was. I mean, it was just outstanding. I mean, a bit of a flyby by Dach for sure. But, I mean, that's the thing. 3-on-3, there's not a lot of ice. And if that guy gets one step on you, he's by you. It's too late. So, yeah, I mean, their defense played excellent. I mean, the Jets' defense was not quite as good. But, I mean, I just think that overall the Jets, they had trouble cranking it up and finding that extra gear. I found that Colorado had that extra gear in the second and third. So, yeah, it was an impressive showing by, a really good team. Like, Colorado's won 10 games in a row at home. I mean, this is the thing that is, it's kind of, I wouldn't say bothering me, Sean, but the Avalanche have the best winning percentage in the Western Conference. But because they have so few games played, they've been either below the playoff line or in a wild card spot for most of this stretch of time. So people think, Colorado, something must be wrong there. Well, no, they've been one of the hottest teams in the NHL. So, that's not to say the Jets didn't struggle at times today. They did, but a team is going to struggle. This is the thing that makes me laugh. Everyone's talking, oh, well, where's the coaching bump now? Well, they're 3-2 now. Well, they weren't going to win the last 52 games after Dave Lowry took over. So, they played well against St. Louis. They played well against Vegas. They didn't play well against Colorado. If you play 2 out of 3 good games against some of the best teams in the league, a team is going to do pretty well. But now this is the great part of hockey again, Sean. Now a week between games. The next time the Jets play, they play the Detroit Red Wings, who are basically in a playoff battle when most teams were pegging them to be in the Shane Wright sweepstakes. So, now the Jets are 3-2 under Dave Lowry. They have a week to get ready. And how are you going to play? When there's a week between games, today was a missed opportunity. And I'm not just saying that. It's not counterproductive to what I'm saying. The Jets aren't going to win every game, but tonight was their night. They had 2 games in hand on the Edmonton Oilers. They could have moved back into a playoff spot. They lose this game. Now you don't play for a week. The Oilers aren't going to play either, but you had an opportunity to make up some additional ground, and they were unable to do so. So that makes the importance on that Detroit game so much higher because of all the postponed games that are in and around the schedule right now.
Well, you know what? It kind of brings up this question. Enor Trapp wants an answer to this. He's asked it about 3 times, and I think he started following us when we were in Montreal.
Yeah, during the playoffs. Yeah, for sure.
It was great. So it's great to see he stuck around. And so let's answer his question here. He wants to know who you think are the most likely candidates to drop out of the playoff race for the Jets to hop over. Who do you got?
Yeah, I would say right now, unless Edmonton can solve their goaltending problems, I would say the Edmonton Oilers and the Anaheim Ducks. I think that Dallas Eakins has done an awesome job with that group. When you have John Gibson, you have the ability to stay in that race. But I would say that that's a team that, I think the Jets, if they're healthy and if they're getting elite level play from their high-end players, that's a team that they should be able to at least hang with, if not pass. So I would say those are the 2 teams that I would identify. Having said that, there are also teams, like the Vancouver Canucks with their crazy run. They're pushing. The LA Kings aren't going away, and there's some other teams that are kind of neck and neck right there. So it's and then too, look what happened to Kirill Kaprizov tonight. Kaprizov gets hurt. We know the Wild are having a great year, but Kaprizov changed the dynamic of that team.
Entirely.
I don't know how long he's going to be out or how serious it is, but that's a big loss for him if he's out for any length of time. So I would say that, like we always say, nothing is permanent in the NHL. And, the second half of the year is going to be super interesting. The Jets are going to play a lot of really good teams. This was their first game against the Avalanche. So that means they're going to see them a lot down the stretch, and they're going to have to be a lot better than they were tonight if they want to hang with those kind of teams.
I think that something will happen there in Edmonton. So I think Edmonton is going to pull it off and is going to stick around. I would add actually Calgary into that group there.
Really?
I was surprised to see that they were only 3 points ahead of the Jets right now. If you think about how high they were at one point, they were leading the Western Conference at some point in points and have kind of been. And I also do think that there was a little bit of they went in tonight and they lost. I believe it was 4-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The night before, I think they had that real wake-up call at the hands of the Florida Panthers. I think it's one of those things where, and it can happen. I think there was a little bit of that feeling with the Jets when they played Pittsburgh. In my opinion, the best hockey is being played in the East right now. And there's some really, really good teams there. And I think what happens is, you heard it from Daryl Sutter, who said after the Calgary Flames lost to that Florida Panthers team, that team's on another level, right? When you've got coaches saying that kind of stuff out loud, when you are the Calgary Flames, who not long ago were being talked about as maybe being the best team in the West, you just ran into a bit of a steamroller. So I do think that, playing those teams and losing to them sometimes can have that little bit of a psychological edge of I think Calgary's kind of been put in their place, and I want to see how they respond to that. And don't forget the Dallas Stars, who are behind the Jets right now. Yeah, they trail the Jets by 3 points, but they've got 3 games in hand on the Jets, and they just beat the Florida Panthers tonight. They're just such an interesting team, Ken? Because they can look like world beaters on one night and they can look absolutely terrible on another. I always think that making the playoffs is a dicey proposition for that team. Even the year they went to the Stanley Cup final, if you remember before the COVID pause, they were sinking like a stone and very well may have fallen out of the playoff race at that time. But dollars to donuts, if they do sneak into the playoffs, you do not want to be the team playing them in the first round, because as they're constructed, they're the kind of team that could take down a Colorado Avalanche or a Vegas Golden Knights in the first round if they sneak in that 8th or 7th seed. So there's a lot still. There's a lot of jockeying. Everyone's really close. The Jets by no means aren't out of it. Like we say, you said they're 3-2. Their first loss is to Washington. Then they knock off the Blues and Vegas. I know tonight doesn't look very good, but the Jets aren't in an absolutely terrible spot. They're right there, string together some wins. They could do something. And I do think there may not have been a team in the league who's kind of benefited from the weird kind of COVID pauses that we're having. Like it was the perfect timing after that Blues game to shut things down and give the Jets some time to work on what they were trying to do. And I think they kind of executed what they were trying to do. They take a step back tonight, get punched in the gut, get dropped to the ground. Well, they've got a week now to turn things around and forget that and move on. So I really do think the Jets have had things kind of go their way. The interesting part in all of it, Ken, though, is going to be that they're going to have a ton of games to make up down the stretch. And it's one thing to be playing a whole bunch of games when you're kind of padded like they were last year. And in the end, it seemed like it kind of caught up with them. They started losing games. But when you're chasing the playoffs and now you've got that grind of a schedule, it can get pretty darn tough. So that's the one thing I don't think the Jets have a lot of room for error, even from this point forward. You need to start putting together 3-win stretches like they did over the last couple of games. Like that's what you want to see them respond with, because if they kind of keep going with the 2 wins here and the 2 losses there, that's not going to be enough, especially when the grind comes and they're going to find themselves out of the playoff race if that's the case.
Yeah, there's just no room for error when you get down to that point. I would just say one quick thing about the Calgary Flames and what Daryl Sutter said. We love the frankness and the honesty, Sean, but when you have that 2-game set against Florida, I think to me that was more of a, I think that was more of a message to his players than I don't think that Daryl really feels that they were not at that level. I think that he was trying to get them on high alert for playing Tampa 2 days from then. I don't think for once, because tonight his answer was, we played pretty well, right? I mean, so, and I would even say, even though they lost that game, they had 49 shots against Florida. So I don't even know that they played terribly against them. They put up a ton of offensive opportunities. They just didn't convert against Bobrovsky. But I think that was more of, I wouldn't say psychological warfare, but I think that was one of those things that Daryl says in the media to kind of think maybe Tampa will take us lightly because we didn't measure up against their, in-state rival. That's my theory on that. But I understand where you're coming from. But I would counter by saying the biggest difference between Calgary and Edmonton has been on display. And we talk about this all the time. What if Edmonton goes the extra year or the extra million on Jacob Markstrom? If Jacob Markstrom's in goal for the Oilers, are we having these same kind of conversations? But if you have Markstrom, you probably can't have Zach Hyman, right? So, I mean, there's this big push and pull about if you saw, and even too, I mean, Mike Smith, when healthy, is fine. But Koskinen is a backup goalie that's played too much because Smith's been hurt. So, the age-old problem is if you don't have the depth behind those guys, or that depth is not producing, now the Oilers are a one-line plus hockey team. So it's super interesting in the West, I think.
I'll say this. Ken Holland, I like a lot of the stuff that he's done. I think, they were really saddled by a lot of the financial decisions made by Chiarelli before he left. So I think he's done a fairly good job with what he's done. I like some of the moves that he's made just to bring in, like some of the players that he has. I think they've got enough depth. I don't think their defense is as bad as people make it out to be. But at this stage, Ken, I'm starting to think like, what your problem is. Goaltending is your problem. And if it's as simple as finding a guy who can make some saves, and maybe a guy like Fleury is out there where you could send some prospects, but bring in a guy, and make it work financially. Like at this stage, if the if the Oilers don't solve that goaltending problem and they miss the playoffs, then to me that's inexcusable. I mean, it's a single problem that needs to be fixed. It's your job as a general manager to do that. It seems pretty simple to me what they need to do there, or at least try before things get out of hand here. They're sinking like a stone. Something's got to be done. And by the way, I should throw it out there. There's a bit of a break in the Jets schedule here. I'll be in Edmonton on Monday to do the Oilers game. Gene Principe needs to take a break. So if you want to check me out doing the broadcast there, I think it'll be on Sportsnet that night. It's a Monday night game. So anyways, let's move on to the next thing here. We should talk about Cole Perfetti before we shut this down. Well, finish what you want to do here, but I know they want us to talk about Cole Perfetti. Let's get to it. What's your thoughts on his game?
Yeah, I thought there were some nice signs. I mean, I thought that one shift that I didn't like, and it wasn't necessarily Perfetti's fault, but the one shift he was out there with Adam Lowry, I thought they really got hemmed in on one really kind of tough shift. But like I said, I liked what I saw even in the minimal time that second unit had on the power play. I thought there was some nice puck movement there. I mean, Cole did the things that he does. He's a smart player. He had a couple of nice plays, got the puck back to the point, then opened up to try to get himself to his seam. I would say that he did a nice job. I liked the fact that Dave Lowry bumped him up onto the second line for a stretch there. And that's not a knock on Yevgeny Svechnikov. And I know a lot of people were up in arms about the line juggling, but most of those same people were the same people that were pissed off that Perfetti was starting the game on the fourth line. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say Perfetti should be playing with skilled players, and then when he gets moved there, why is the coach changing things when it's a 1-1 game? I mean, or a 2-1 game. I mean, that doesn't work for me. I like the fact that he put him in an offensive role. That's an area where he can contribute. I think he made some smart plays. Some folks disappointed that like Curtis McDermott hit Cole Perfetti with a good hit. It wasn't a dirty play. It wasn't a high hit. I mean, Curtis McDermott's one of the toughest guys in the league. You don't have to fight every time there's a body check. I mean, that's part of hockey. I mean, if it was a big run, I mean, this happened in open ice in front of the net. I don't think it was a dirty play, and I don't think that a fight was required in that situation in terms of a response. Like, I mean, Cole Perfetti can handle getting hit. That's part of hockey. I mean, I thought his decisions with the puck were smart. I mean, that's what he is. He's a smart player. Does today show that Cole Perfetti is ready to be a full-time NHLer? No. I mean, you need to see more. But to me, I thought Perfetti was fine. One other quick thing. Do you think it was a factor at all? Because I do. Like Curtis McDermott banging into Hellebuyck early, I think that impacted his game.
Helly's game.
No goalie wants to get hit. I mean, he basically went out and bowled him over. I mean, and we know that that's an accidentally on purpose. I mean, if you get a chance to get a bump on a high-end goalie, you're going to do it every single time. So I'm not saying someone told him to go out and do it. I just think that that is something that has a goalie kind of looking over his shoulder to some degree.
Well, I'm going to answer that and remind me to get back to Perfetti because I wanted to talk about him. But I know on the broadcast, Dave Poulin felt like the response by the Jets was the appropriate response, that they didn't do anything to make sure they got the penalty. And it definitely looked that way, the way that, they went down and they scored right away after that. I do think the Jets, especially Pierre-Luc Dubois this year, have been kind of masters at going and doing the little bit of the play that pisses the other team off, and then the other team responds, and the Jets have the ability to not respond. But when it comes to your goaltender, to me, that's almost a different thing, right? Like, Hellebuyck is the most important player on this team. He remains that way. No matter what we say about it, the Jets' best chance, most direct line to getting to where they want to go, the playoffs and further and winning a Stanley Cup, goes through Connor Hellebuyck. And to me, I think sometimes that message does need to be sent. I don't think that there's any room out there for knocking over our goaltender if our goaltender is Connor Hellebuyck. And so I'm not sure if I agree with that. In the moment, it looked like it was. They scored, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong about this. But I don't necessarily like the fact that there wasn't any response there. And I will say this. Connor Hellebuyck usually in my mind, he strikes me as a fighter. He doesn't back down from anything. So in situations like that, I expect him to kind of bounce back. Until you said it right now, I wouldn't have really contemplated the idea of him getting run and kind of wilting after that.
Oh, I didn't say
Uh,
wilting. I didn't
I
say
know you didn't
wilting.
say that. Yeah, and I know that you're not yeah, I know you're not saying that, but I will say this. Usually I expect that when people get up in his kitchen, that's going to elevate his game. He clearly didn't have his best game tonight. Although you take a lot like Bowen Byram's shot, that's a perfectly placed shot. You're not stopping that. He does everything right to try and stop that. McKinnon, you can't stop that shot. Landeskog's couple of goals, you're not stopping that. Same thing with Rantanen. So like I don't blame him for what happened out there tonight.
Nor
But
do I.
yeah,
I'm just
it's
saying
an
that I think
interesting.
it's an interesting. To me, I don't think it impacted how he played. I just think that it's something that it can make a goalie uneasy. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I want to go back to Perfetti. The one thing I'll say about his game, I thought it was promising, and here's why I thought it was promising. I went down and I saw a couple Moose games, saw him play, and you really see him in his element down there and what he does really good. Cole Perfetti is one of those guys that when you're on the ice and you're defending, you have a hard time taking your eyes off of him. And then once he kind of sucks you into looking at him, he'll make a move with the puck and then you're watching the puck. He's really, really good at getting guys to watch that puck. And you saw it a couple times tonight. What he's really good at is once he moves that puck and his defender looks to where that puck has gone, he keeps moving. And it allows him to kind of create this space for him at all times. And he's really that guy that, you're going to see him throughout his career. He's going to be the kind of guy who's going to do those give and goes and get the puck back and, really be able to move the puck around and confuse defenses. I saw signs of that tonight. I thought that he was kind of playing his game. Now, did it translate to points? No. Did he have enough opportunities to do that? Like maybe, sometimes it's incumbent upon the player, like we saw from Reichel or we saw from Harkins, that when you get that opportunity, you pounce all over that opportunity. I'm not saying that he didn't, but if I'm Dave Lowry, if I'm the Jets coaching staff, I liked his game tonight because before the game, he said he wanted to come in and kind of play more his style and that he didn't in his first couple of games. I entirely agree. I thought what I saw from him when he was with the Manitoba Moose looked nothing like his game tape from the first two games that he played at the beginning of the year with the Winnipeg Jets. So to me, he's grown. He's gone down.
Totally.
He's grown. He's matured. He knows more what he has to do at the NHL level. He knows more what defines him as a player and what his game looks like. And I thought that game tonight looked more like what his game is supposed to look like. I think that given a couple more opportunities, you're going to start to see him, finding his way onto the score sheet and maybe even up the lineup if he's given those opportunities.
Yeah, and I want to see more of him. That's like, let me be clear. All I'm saying is that you don't hand him a full-time job based on what you saw today, but I would like to see him again based on the circumstances. And like I said, I liked him. I don't think you have to play him all the time in the top six, but I think that that's where he's going to end up being, of course. And again, there are times where he's going to try to give some guys a bump because he's a smart player. And I'm very curious to see how this continues to evolve as the season goes on. We've said this before. I mean, there's a lot of time in the season to see if he can become a player. I mean, this was one of the nights where the Jets defense had some issues, and there were times during the game where I kind of caught myself wondering, this is the conversation we had, people up in arms, well, why is Perfetti on the taxi squad? Well, this is why, because you can go into the lineup. And today, during the game, I'm wondering, this was a great example. I would have loved to have seen Ville Heinola in this game, right? So, and that's not a knock on Nathan Beaulieu or anybody else, but in a game where the Jets were having, they were going up against a high-end, high-paced team, what would a mobile puck mover have done? Could a mobile puck mover have helped the Jets tonight? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's why those guys are on the taxi squad and around the team. When COVID hits, you can turn to them and put them into the lineup. So, again, I'm not saying that Ville Heinola is going to be called up by the Jets, but that was just one of the things, random things go through my head during the course of a game. And those are the kind of teams where the Jets need to see if when he gets to be ready, then he's going to be an asset in games like that against highly skilled teams where you're able to move the puck out with a little bit better frequency and efficiency. One last thing, I know we should talk about Saskatoon quickly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the last thing before we close out. You started off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, again, I think it's a likelihood. I mean, not necessarily, but I think this is just an example of how dire the circumstances are and the potential of what it means to an organization, any organization, to play with no fans. I was watching that Leafs game again, Leafs Oilers game yesterday. It looked so bizarre to see the tarps out. I mean, that's a marquee matchup, right? That's the only time Edmonton will play in Toronto this year, barring a Stanley Cup final. And two of the best players in the game are in the lineup, and there's nobody there. That's an enormous amount of revenue lost in that sort of scenario. So, I mean, do I think the Jets want to play in Saskatoon? Of course not. They want to play all their games in front of 15,000 people if they can find them in Winnipeg. But I just think it goes to show the severity of the situation where all kinds of options are being explored because of the uncertainty of the pandemic and the ability to have fans in an arena again. And I understand why some people might be upset about it, but I think it's also important to remember that somebody said it on Twitter. I don't remember who it was, but the Jets as a team are being asked to shell out 81 to, I mean, I think into LTIR would be somewhere close to $90 million in revenue. And if you don't have revenue streams coming in, or not as many revenue streams, of course you're going to have to look at some options. But again, we'll see what happens and where it goes from here. I think this is just sort of the early stages of the searching process, I guess, or investigative process, if you will.
Yeah, you know what? I understand responses like this from
for sure.
Boy Bruce. Don't reward Saskatchewan for their horrendous pandemic response. We'll leave it to that. I mean, there is a feeling this is Manitoba's team, right? And Manitoba's response is something that we all have to respect it. How our government is. I mean, I don't want to get political on it. I don't want to say respect it, like blindly respect the government. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like this is Manitoba's response. We are all in this together trying to make our way through it. And so there is something a little bothersome to people about the idea of a team taking off and going to a different jurisdiction to get around the same rules that we're all under. So I totally get that. But I'll say this, like it's not a fluke that the Jets haven't been playing in Winnipeg since, what was it, the 21st or 22nd, whenever that game was. And it's not a fluke that you're seeing so many of these Canadian games being postponed. They're trying to push them back to a point where this crashing wave of COVID isn't so heavy and they can get fans back in the stands. They're delaying. They don't want to play the string out and play the schedule out as it stands right now and lose that money. And like, hey, if it's, I was reading the survey. If it's 250 fans in the seats, it's the same thing as 0 fans in the seats. Okay. It's not about the atmosphere so much. It's the fact that they're not getting paid. And this is, I just went down to the Board of Governors meetings, and believe me, the NHL was feeling like they were getting back on their feet. It was a rough couple of years. Getting the TV money that they did from TNT and from ESPN helps. So that's a boost. But they don't want to be giving away revenue, and they're trying to work around it every way they can. The schedule that you're seeing right now, the fact that there's no Jets games from now until next Thursday, I think it is, Ken, when they're in Detroit. I mean, there's a reason for that. And the reason is that they're trying to take games that would be played in Winnipeg now and put them into a different time of the schedule where they will be able to get fans in the stands. So they are trying to accommodate this in a way that is going to allow you, the season ticket holders, and the fans an opportunity to get in the building and enjoy this. But it's a business as well, and I understand the idea of them saying if we can go and sell, and I don't know how big Saskatoon's building is, 6,000, 8,000, 9,000.
No, it's actually almost, I mean, we were looking this up. I thought it was only 8,000 or 9,000, but they closed up the Tupper Bowl for most games. I think they can hold actually close to 15,000.
Whoa. I've watched games in that building. That surprises me. I didn't think it was that big. But anyway, I mean, put it this way, even if it was 8,000 is way better than $250, right? And in the end, it's not the first time the Jets have taken their show on the road to Saskatchewan and allowed Jets fans. I mean, there's a lot of Jets fans in Saskatchewan, right? So in a way, they're not even betraying their fan base by going to a place where there's a lot of Jets fans. Anyway, so I understand what they're doing. I understand them exploring it, and I understand the fans' reaction. It's a tough situation. It's COVID. Everyone's trying to make it work. I'm just saying I get it. It's a business, and there's a reason behind it. And the reason behind it is that they need to sell as many tickets as they can, and if they're not able to do it here, the choices are A, push back as many of these games to later in the season and replay them at a time where they can get fans in the stands, which is what they're doing right now. But if even that doesn't work, they're exploring this other option. I absolutely understand it. Anything you want to say before we shut down?
Sorry, yes, McDavid was on the COVID protocol list, so he was not available for the game. But still, I mean, Draisaitl versus Matthews, same idea. I mean, when you have a marquee matchup, you want to have it played in front of a full building. I stand by that.
Okay. All right. That's it for us tonight. One last time, I'm going to pitch it. I got word that we're extending this pre-sale into the morning. So if you're on the fence, maybe now's the time for me to gently try and push you off that fence, or Ken to give you a COVID sneeze off that fence, and get out there, get your wake up t-shirts or your Sean's headband shirts. We really appreciate the support that we've been given by so many of you so far. It really does mean a lot to us. Before I go, I'm going to throw in the comments a link where you can go check that out if you haven't done it already, or just go search the Sportsnet store and you'll find it there. It's pretty easy to find. Only two markets right now with clothing lines out of Sportsnet right now, Ken. Big Toronto with the Steve Dangle clothing collection, and the little engine that could Winnipeg with the Kenny and Renny collection. And our chat room, you are so much of the little engine that could. You're so much that fuels us and makes this all possible. So we appreciate that. We appreciate your support. And if you're thinking of supporting us, please head out and do that. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. It's going to be a while. So we will see you next Thursday. Yeah. Go check that out. Kevin Bieksa was absolutely phenomenal. And if you watch this and you see the comments, if you love seeing me get roasted, it happened in full form there on that night. So that's the next time you'll see us, is that next Thursday's long form. We don't have a guest yet, but we'll get that going.
We do.
Oh, we do?
Tara.
Oh, we do. Yeah. We've got Tara Sloan that's absolutely phenomenal from Rogers. And I love having conversations. I ran into her at the airport last time I was coming back from Columbus. Phenomenal gal. Can't wait to talk to her. So, yeah, we'll see that next Thursday. Come join us there. And then after that, later in the day, that will be the next Jets game. Thank you so much for joining us earlier today. And right now, we will see you next Thursday.